Now, had not the Mastermaid put him in mind that it was high time to be off to hell to fetch the Giant's fire tax before he came home. So he went on his way, and did just as the Mastermaid had told him, and when he reached the rock, he took up the club and gave a great thump. Then the rock opened, and out came one whose face glistened, and out of whose eyes and nostrils flew sparks of fire. "What is your will?" said he. "Oh, I'm only come from the Giant to fetch his fire tax", said the Prince. "How much will you have then?" said the other. "I never wish for more than I am able to carry", said the Prince. "Lucky for you that you did not ask for a whole horse load", said he who came out of the rock. "But come now into the rock with me, and you shall have it." So the Prince went in with him, and you may fancy what heaps and heaps of gold and silver he saw lying in there, just like stones in a gravel pit, and he got a load just as big as he was able to carry, and set off home with it. Now, when the Giant came home with his goats at even, the Prince went into his room, and began to carol and sing as he had done the evenings before. "Have you been to hell after my fire tax?" roared the Giant. "Oh yes, that I have, master", answered the Prince. "Where have you put it?" said the Giant. "There stands the sack on the bench yonder", said the Prince. "I'll soon see to that", said the Giant, who strode off to the bench, and there he saw the sack so full that the gold and silver dropped out on the floor as soon as ever he untied the string. "You've been talking to my Mastermaid, that I can see", said the Giant; "but if you have, I'll wring your head off." "Mastermaid!" said the Prince. "Yesterday master talked of this Mastermaid, and today he talks of her again, and the day before yesterday it was the same story. I only wish I could see what sort of thing she is, that I do." "Well, well, wait till tomorrow", said the Giant, "and then I'll take you in to her myself." "Thank you kindly, master", said the Prince, "but it's only a joke of master's, I'll be bound." So next day the Giant took him in to the Mastermaid, and said to her, "Now you must cut his throat and boil him in this great big pot you wot of, and when the broth is ready just give me a call." After that he laid him down on the bench to sleep, and began to snore so, that it sounded like thunder on the hills. So the Mastermaid took a knife and cut the Prince in his little finger, and let 3 drops of blood fall on a 3-legged stool, and after that she took all the old rags, and soles of shoes, and all the rubbish she could lay hands on, and put them into the pot, and then she filled a chest full of ground gold, and took a lump of salt, and a flask of water that hung behind the door, and she took, besides, a golden apple, and 2 golden chickens, and off she set with the Prince from the Giant's house as fast as they could. And when they had gone a little way they came to the sea, and after that they sailed over the sea, but where they got the ship from I have never heard tell. So when the Giant had slumbered a good bit, he began to stretch himself as he lay on the bench, and called out, "Will it be soon done?" "Only just begun", answered the first drop of blood on the stool. So the Giant lay down to sleep again, and slumbered a long, long time. At last he began to toss about a little, and cried out, "Do you hear what I say? Will it be soon done?" But he did not look up this time, any more than the first, for he was still half asleep. "Half done", said the second drop of blood. Then the Giant thought again it was the Mastermaid, so he turned over on his other side and fell asleep again, and when he had gone on sleeping for many hours, he began to stir and stretch his old bones, and to call out, "Isn't it done yet?" "Done to a turn", said the third drop of blood. Then the Giant rose up and began to rub his eyes, but he couldn't see who it was that was talking to him, so he searched and called for the Mastermaid, but no one answered. "Ah, well, I dare say she's run out of doors for a bit", he thought, and took up a spoon and went up to the pot to taste the broth, but he found nothing but shoe soles, and rags, and such stuff, and it was all boiled up together, so that he couldn't tell which was thick and which was thin. As soon as he saw this, he could tell how things had gone, and he got so angry he scarce knew which leg to stand upon. Away he went after the Prince and the Mastermaid, till the wind whistled behind him, but before long he came to the water and couldn't cross it. "Never mind", he said, "I know a cure for this. I've only got to call on my stream sucker." So he called on his stream sucker, and he came and stooped down, and took 1, 2, 3 gulps, and then the water fell so much in the sea that the Giant could see the Mastermaid and the Prince sailing in their ship. "Now you must cast out the lump of salt", said the Mastermaid. So the Prince threw it overboard, and it grew up into a mountain so high, right across the sea, that the Giant couldn't pass it, and the stream sucker couldn't help him by swilling any more water. "Never mind", cried the Giant. "There's a cure for this too." So he called on his hill borer to come and bore through the mountain, that the stream sucker might creep through and take another swill. But just as they had made a hole through the hill, and the stream sucker was about to drink, the Mastermaid told the Prince to throw overboard a drop or two out of the flask, and then the sea was just as full as ever, and before the stream sucker could take another gulp, they reached the land and were saved from the Giant. So they made up their minds to go home to the Prince's father, but the Prince would not hear of the Mastermaid's walking, for he thought it seemly neither for her nor for him. "Just wait here 10 minutes", he said, "while I go home after the 7 horses which stand in my father's stall. It's no great way off, and I shan't be long about it; but I shall not hear of my sweetheart walking to my father's palace." "Ah!" said the Mastermaid, "pray don't leave me, for if you once get home to the palace, you'll forget me outright, I know you will." "Oh!" said he, "how can I forget you, you with whom I have gone through so much, and whom I love so dearly?" There was no help for it, he must and would go home to fetch the coach and 7 horses, and she was to wait for him by the seaside. So at last the Mastermaid was forced to let him have his way. She only said: "Now, when you get home, don't stop so much as to say good day to any one. Go straight to the stable and put to the horses, and drive back as quick as you can; for they will all come about you, but do as though you did not see them. And above all things, mind you not taste a morsel of food, for if you do, we shall both come to grief." All this the Prince promised, but he thought all the time there was little fear of his forgetting her. Now, just as he came home to the palace, one of his brothers was thinking of holding his bridal feast, and the bride, and all her kith and kin, were just come to the palace. So they all thronged round him, and asked about this thing and that, and wanted him to go in with them; but he made as though he did not see them, and went straight to the stall and got out the horses, and began to put them to. And when they saw they could not get him to go in, they came out to him with meat and drink, and the best of everything they had got ready for the feast. But the Prince would not taste so much as a crumb, and put to as fast as he could. At last the bride's sister rolled an apple across the yard to him, saying: "Well, if you won't eat anything else, you may as well take a bite of this, for you must be both hungry and thirsty after so long a journey." So he took up the apple and bit a piece out of it, but he had scarce done so before he forgot the Mastermaid, and how he was to drive back for her. "Well, I think I must be mad", he said. "What am I to do with this coach and horses?" So he put the horses up again, and went along with the others into the palace, and it soon settled that he should have the bride's sister, who had rolled the apple over to him. There sat the Mastermaid by the seashore, and waited for the Prince, but no Prince came. So at last she went up from the shore, and after she had gone a bit she came to a little hut, which lay by itself in a copse close by the king's palace. She went in and asked if she might lodge there. It was an old dame that owned the hut, and a cross-grained scolding hag she was as you never saw. At first she would not hear of the Mastermaid's lodging in her house, but at last, for fair words and high rent, the Mastermaid got leave to be there. Now the hut was as dark and dirty as a pigsty, so the Mastermaid said she would smarten it up a little, that their house might look inside like other people's. The old hag did not like this either, and showed her teeth, and was cross; but the Mastermaid did not mind her. She took her chest of gold and threw a handful or so into the fire, and lo! the gold melted and bubbled and boiled over out of the grate, and spread itself over the whole hut, till it was gilded both outside and in. But as soon as the gold began to bubble and boil, the old hag got so afraid that she tried to run out as if the evil one were at her heels, and as she ran out the door she forgot to stoop, and gave her head such a knock against the lintel, that she broke her neck,